morning. Good morning. Wow, we've got some great faces in here this morning for Tech Talk. Yay! Happy Thursday and another expected beautiful day today.
Yes.
And all weekend.
Going outside.
My husband is so excited. I'm working all weekend and he's going to be on his motorcycle. He'll be a sunburn galore by the end of the weekend. I bet. He's British white. So, he'll go British red, sunburned red. So again, welcome everyone to Tech Talk on Thursday. Not only myself, Catherine Davies, but with our guest speaker this morning, Thomas from MLP Technologies. Yay. And the crowd roared.
I'll add that in post for sure.
Thank you.
Yes. No problem.
So just for you guys to be aware of some local goings on, Monday morning will be Tech Talk. Yeah.
Tech Talk.
Yeah, coffee. You didn't have your background on. I didn't get it. Coffee with Ivan, and that runs from 9:30 till 10:30 every Monday morning.
I noticed he changed his background.
I know.
Okay.
It threw me off.
Yeah, I was getting
Very
radical. By the way, I just want to say that Monday morning we have a paralegal joining us. She's going to be talking about the importance of good contracts. So come on down and join us.
Excellent. That's our neighbor, right?
That's our neighbor. Yes.
Yeah. We live in a professional building here, and so that's Monday, and then of course Tuesday we have our city leaders for the city leaders that are on there, and then on Wednesday night is Investment 2021 with Mr. Steven, and I'm sure last night was quite the conversation. I missed it.
It was good. It was really I learned some crazy things last night about investing and stuff. Anyway, it was good.
Yeah. Well, it's all the crypto news that's going on. I can just imagine how between stocks and crypto, probably your hour wasn't near enough, right?
Yeah. We were like, wow, an hour flew by. That was great.
Yeah. And just before we get to Thomas, just so that you're aware, next week we'll be doing some business basics that are tech. But we've noticed from some of our questions is that we think we're all at the same level and I've been in business for 16 years working with Word. And so you stumble across a lot of stuff. Mind you, I'm still asking Thomas a lot of questions. So, so that'll be next Thursday morning. So don't miss it. I'd like to welcome Stephanie. And are you a guest of Ivan? Yeah.
Of Ivan's? No, I was looking for business owners and just looking to connect with other people in Brantford. So that's why
In Brantford.
Oh, excellent. You're from Brantford. Awesome. So you got us on Meetup then.
Yes.
Excellent.
Excelente.
Thank you. And the elusive Yuri there. Hi, Yuri.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
He's
A
there.
lot of incognitos. And welcome, Billy. Is he a guest of yours, Ivan?
Hey, good morning. I'm actually a friend of Thomas's, so just here to support him. Good morning, everybody.
Awesome.
Excellent. So are you a Windsorite?
I'm a Windsorite. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've known Thomas from since we were young kids through the Greek community. So anytime I get a chance to hop on and hear his wisdom, I'm here.
Awesome. Well, listen, I might reach out to you later on to get stuff that I can embarrass him with later. So that's awesome. Nice stuff meeting you.
Actually, my connection's dropping, guys. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear Thomas paid you enough money. That's good. Okay.
Yeah,
Thomas, how come his connection's dropping? Is there something you haven't covered?
All right. On that note, I'd like you to welcome our tech guru here. I love tech. That's why I do the Tech Talks. But Thomas is actually the expert, okay? And so he's here today from MLP Technologies in Windsor. I think probably about 4 of us on the show, I'll use him, maybe even more, as our tech support for different and various products. So please welcome Thomas, Ask the Tech guy today. Yay! All yours, Thomas.
Thanks, everybody. After an introduction like that, I mean, no, but thank you very much. As Catherine mentioned, I am from MLP Technologies located in Windsor. We are a managed service provider. We provide IT and technical services to small, medium-sized businesses in the areas of IT, security, and communication. Essentially, what we try to do is we try to take the stress of technology out of the business owner's hands. Business owners wear hats, so many different hats. Let's just, we want to take that technology hat off your head. The other thing, actually, I said this in the networking group the other day, show of hands if anybody's heard or paid attention to the news cycle lately with all the cyber attacks, specifically the one with the pipeline in the States.
Yeah.
So how
Gas
many
at
of you-
$3 a gallon, they're all freaking out.
That's just it. And so my next question after that is, how many of you do not want to be part of those statistics? So we are, we have the tools and utilities in place to help mitigate those options, those possibilities of you being part of those statistics. I actually read an article last night and posted it late last night too, that 92% of ransomware groups, you don't get the money, you don't get your data back even after you paid the money. So as I mentioned, even my quick little smart comment there was, I didn't realize 8% of ransomware groups were actually honest, but it's also 8% more than I even expected. So really, I'm not surprised by that, except for the fact, like I said, it's 92%. I would have figured like 99% of the time you don't get it back. That's why it's just so important that you have, it's got, businesses have to realize that IT isn't an afterthought, and having a business continuity disaster plan, business continuity, you got to know how to keep business going in the event of something going wrong. And then disaster recoveries, how do you pick up the pieces to keep moving, right? You got to have all that together in order to make it work. So disaster recovery is good, business continuity is good on their own, but when you put them together, that's how you really keep your business going in the event of an attack. So that's just something out of the news cycle that I was able to make mention of right now, because when the gas lines being hit, hospitals were being hit. There's no honor amongst thieves, and small, medium-sized businesses are just getting decimated right now. One of my vendors puts out an annual report. 2001 report hasn't been put out yet, but even 2020, huge increases across the board. Europe is actually attacked more often than any other region for some reason, but it's still across the board. Any region, North America, Asia Pacific, Europe, EU, ransomware attacks are just incredible. And the fact you got to pay in Bitcoin too makes it a lot harder, because they're saying 100 Bitcoin. Well, at 50K a pop, that adds up quick, right? So it's depending on the type of Bitcoin too, right? I mean, it ranges between, what is it now, 30 to 50, depending on the type of currency that they tell you to pay. So it adds up quick. As we mentioned, today is Ask an MSP. I had Catherine actually send me a question for today and also for support at the same time a few days back. So how did that go? Any luck with that, Catherine? Or
I haven't been able to locate any driver updates that I've required. And my son, and this goes to show you, if you don't pay for good, you don't necessarily get good, right? So my son, IT, told me it is a separate card.
Okay.
That and my graphics card, I think he said he separated.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, and that's the graphics card is whenever there's an opportunity. I always mention to people, if you can, when you're building a desktop or buying a desktop, laptops it's harder to come across just because the way they're built. But again, you pay the right price, you can get it. I always say that a discrete is what they is the term. A discrete graphics card is always best to go with, because what happens is that the graphics card needs its own amount of RAM and processing capability, and if it's discrete, it always has its own on board. Where if it's integrated, it eats up from the resources you put onto the motherboard itself. So it does its own computing if you have a dedicated or discrete card. So that's why it's always good to have that. As far as the network card, pros and cons to it. Because it's a dedicated card, you can remove it and replace it and troubleshoot that way to see if it is the network card that's causing you the issues. Also, the good thing is that because it's dedicated and it's not integrated into the motherboard, you're not actually having problems with the motherboard then. Because a lot of times what I notice is that if it's an all-in-one board and you start having problems with, say, the network card or the video card, it's not long until the entire board goes down and you're switching, you've got to replace the entire computer, right? So that's a good thing. So I would.
So Thomas, hold on.
Yeah.
My question was to Thomas, and anybody who I do Zoom with.
Wait, no, I was actually going to go with, I was going to explain the question in just a minute, but yeah, no, please go ahead. No, please go ahead. No, please, bring up your question. No problem. So, No.
That I'll be online and then all of a sudden I'll go, oh, everybody else is frozen. It must be me that's really frozen. And then I can't get on for a really long time. Sometimes it's like frequently, and I do the troubleshooting, and I'm hardwired in, right? It's not like I'm doing Wi-Fi. So that was like an issue, and it's starting to become troublesome. It's longer and longer to get on. So that's why I got the perfect question for today.
no, and it definitely is. Because a lot of times it's, sometimes it's just small hardware issues that you got to start to troubleshoot. And as I mentioned, I gave you that bit of a list of possible troubleshooting tasks, right? It starts with the driver updates. Always just double check whether it's through Windows or the manufacturer. Just double check to make sure the drivers are up to date in the most recent ones. A lot of times you can have communication issues just by having an outdated driver, communication and performance issues. So if you update the driver, check there if there's any updates to do that, and then that's your first troubleshoot. Let it run a couple of days and see what happens. Again, now because you have it's a dedicated card, the best thing I would suggest, if you after the driver updates or there's no updates available, I would look at purchasing a new one and doing it for troubleshooting. Replace that card, put it in, and see how it works. Because if there's no problems, then it's a network card and you're all set to go. If unfortunately it gets to the point where it is still happening and drivers are up to date and everything, and then you start to think about it being the motherboard still. That port on the board is going, and you would have to either look at replacing the board or something's wrong there at that point.
Okay.
It becomes an issue. It becomes a bigger problem at that point if there's still issues with the network card. But yeah, it's definitely. It's funny. I haven't built a computer in years, but yeah, I enjoy doing it. But I mean, right now it's funny because always having. I used to be I would just go shopping for hardware and just virtually just pull everything off the shelf kind of thing and just do it that way, right? But it was it's for everything for the ease that it brings to easily swap out everything, that it's modular. It also just becomes additional to troubleshoot, right? Because you have so many more things that could go wrong. So there's always pros and cons, right? So
so what would be the cost of a replacement for a decent network? Because when we built it, I said to my son, I want a computer that does this. So he said, fine. He went to some place and put me on the watch list for things that went on sale.
Yeah.
And said, this is around the price that you should be paying, give or take. And so when I had all the pieces together, I said, okay, come build my computer. Yes.
Well, doing a quick price check across the board, they vary, and I wasn't sure because at one point they, depending on the technology and the speeds you want to get, right? If you want to get your, just a standard 10100 gigabit card, you're probably going to look about, under $100 range kind of thing. You're looking maybe $50-$60.
What would you recommend though? Like for some, because we're in Zoom now, right? So
well,
everything is in
a
Zoom.
lot, and here's the thing: a lot of questions come into play after when you're looking for that too, right? Because you can get a card that goes for your 10 gig connection, but if you don't have anything else on the back end to accommodate those speeds, you're still going to be bottlenecked with the fastest speed that your routers and switches and your infrastructure can accommodate. So
Okay.
without doing the upgrades there, you might be future-proofing your device, but at the same time, you won't be able to utilize it until you do updates on the infrastructure backend. So if your switches don't match, your cards will always match the same speeds that it's getting from your devices. So if your switches are gigabit and your card has 10 gig, it's only going to get the gigabit because your switches and routers can't pump the same traffic speed, right? So you won't be able to utilize it. If you have switches at the same speeds and you're matching everything like for like, then yeah, no problem, go for it. Future proofing isn't a problem if the difference in price isn't that big. I would say go for it. Because again, there's going to come a point where you're going to do hardware upgrades. So why not? If you're able to at least get the network card, and then in a year or 2 years from now, the infrastructure, switches and routers are upgraded to accommodate, you're good to go. So it's if you have the opportunity, go for it. But if not, I'd say right now, if you get something with a gigabit connection, it'd be more than fine. So because right now, even
like $100, you said?
it should be. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it here real quick. I'm just looking at a couple of them here, just because you mentioned the pricing. So I'm just looking it up real quick, and There's one here I'm seeing for about $55.
Cool.
There's other ones here with multiple connections. So at the same time, that plays a role, right? Features like that would play a role. So that one comes up to about $250. There's other ones that, it depends. There's a double connection here for just under $200. Features and functionality also play a difference, but for your run-of-the-mill gigabit network card, I'd say anywhere between $50 and $75 should be more than
Wow.
enough. So
It's usually when you go computer parts, right? You go,
Yep.
But if
Thomas,
I'm going to keep my hair, I'm not going to be looking like Ivan.
That's right. Hey, it's a good look. Just calling it.
Okay, it looks really good on you.
Thank you so much.
how
Oh, thank
often
you.
are people actually buying like new, right from the guts, from the motherboard up?
doing the custom builds now,
Yeah, like because like the laptop I'm
Adam.
on right now, this is like a Dell, and I bought this thing. I got it a week before Windows 7 came out, and I'm running Windows 10 plus on it. Everything it does everything I need it to.
and that's just it, right? It becomes a matter of your needs, and at the same time, like laptops are so much harder to do a customized build, right? Because everything has to fit within the certain case that the manufacturer's created. Yeah, they have opportunities where you can add on from during the time of purchase, or they've pre-built some and they have the different features. The customization and custom builds typically go more for desktops, and again, it also depends on your needs. I personally haven't built one I can't even tell you right now when the last time I built one. Actually, I built it, gave it to my parents, and it just recently blew, and I had to replace it with something else. So it's, I had it for some time. It's literally been run to the ground now. So, but the needs have, if you're going to be, I always say designers for CAD drawers, programmers, those are the ones, anything with media, those would be really the people that nowadays would need it. Gamers as well too, because let's face it, anything you buy off the shelf, no matter what, will never accommodate some of the newer games. Like gamers, designers, programmers, those are the people that would probably benefit more from custom built. Everyday users, you're doing it because it's either a hobby or you just want, it's something.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
want to do kind of
I've
thing.
always had mine. I mean, in the early days in the 90s, I was actually going to places. Can't remember this. I think it was called Summit Direct out of Toronto, and they used to go and pick these components up and
Yep.
put the things together. All the Dells I've bought, I've always bought them online, so I've actually customized them.
Exactly.
And like you said, I've always wanted like the ATI video cards in the desktop, so I made sure that they had the ATI cards in there, and sort of tried to buy the best that I could afford at the time.
Absolutely.
As
And that's just
possible,
it.
right?
And I always make sure, the one thing I always do when I'm customizing and building like that is always with the motherboard, I make sure that no matter what, the amount of RAM I'm putting in, I can at least double it down the road. So if I'm putting, 12, 16, I can get anywhere between, 24 and 36 kind of thing, right? Nowadays, boards can get so much more, but I want to know that capacity is there for when I decide to upgrade. I don't have to worry about saying, oh crap, I need to buy a new board in order to accommodate.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that there's plenty of room for expansion, which is a huge plus to custom building, right? You can get those opportunities to, if you want to upgrade the RAM, you don't have to replace everything. If you want to switch out the card, it's there. But one of the best things about it too is the processor. One of the hardest things that has to come from replacing all-in-ones, right? It's the processor. So
So I have a question, and we kind of talked about this a little bit more before, but so I have a Microsoft 365 account, and I am regularly getting emails that tell me about updates and things going on and changes, which I mostly just delete because I don't understand what they say. Should I be concerned?
Sherry. That's just
What's
in the
that?
last month or so, like the Cortana.
Oh no, this is like these are ones I've been getting for ages. They
Yeah.
just send an email to tell you they're retiring.
I do the same thing. I just hit delete because I don't know what the heck these 365 Microsoft things
and
are. I've been doing it for like 2 years.
And I've been getting them more recently lately since I brought on Catherine and I've made some changes to my own account. What it is that as the administrator of your account, you're getting the updates from Microsoft indicating these are the changes we're making. And because lately with all the outages, and I'm imagining that there's probably more frequently happening, And you're also getting what's called the digest, basically running about, I don't know what they're digesting so often, but they're basically giving you a rundown of what's been going on and how things are, they're just giving you a summary of what's going on as the administrator to the account and to the services. Again, because if you're non-technical, they aren't really pertinent. But I mean, for me, if I know there's an outage that's happened, I'd want to read that and see, okay, what was the issue? What was impacted? To at least have an idea. So again, if a customer asks, what the hell's going on, be like, hey, listen, over the last 24 hours, they've had some disruptions in services. Everything should be fine now. Just expect some, maybe some delay in your emails. Like last couple of days.
Is that part of your managed services?
Yeah, that would be, because we get those emails, we review it, we get notified on outages. We get notified from, actually right now we get a number of reasons, a number of ways of noting about outages. We get it directly from the Microsoft emails that we get. Even some of our partners will actually notify us of it. Plus, there's always just other websites too that mention about outages as well that we always just jump on and take a look.
So it's okay for somebody like me to just delete it then?
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
If it comes up and it says, M365 digest, or I can't remember the full heading of it. Yeah, it's basically just summarizing anything that they're wanting to update customers or technically the administrator of the account about, which would be any technical issues, outages, any updates to services, terms and conditions, anything like that, right? So if they want to slip in a nice little change saying, we no longer care about anything that happens with your data. If you lose it, it's not our problem at all. Then, they'll slip that in and that's kind of it. I mean, they change their terms and conditions so often. They make so many different changes, right? Especially with the changes always happen in the European Union about privacy and control of documentation and who owns what. They made a number of changes, and that's always changing. And it's stuff like that that's going to be coming through, along with any other outages, changes, and service changes, right? I know Teams is going through a lot of updates right now, so those will be coming through those digests and updates over the next little bit. So it's interesting stuff to see what's going on, but yeah, I'm kind of blown away that they do it so often. It tells me, they got a lot of explaining to do, I guess, or something. But it does come through quite often. Plus, I am also getting double because I get it with every account that I manage. So
Oh, double.
double, triple, whatever the case
Yeah.
is. Customers, I get one for every account, right? So
That makes sense then why I'm just starting to get it, because my last provider I wasn't the administrator, right? That's why we had so much.
yeah,
problem.
I actually switched you to global admin rights just in case if anything down the road, you have easier access to do anything with it. I found it odd that you weren't. It's something I would, I prefer to have, as much as it might be annoying to get maybe those few extra emails. I prefer to know that, sure, you're my customer and I hope you never leave, but if you have to, it should be easier for you to just get up and go. I don't want that to happen, but it's what's right? I mean, it shouldn't be.
Make it so easy for her then.
Because I'm hoping my charming personality and stunning good looks keep her around. So
He knows. See, I'm not going anywhere. I said, yeah, Thomas, I'm going to use you as my provider. Just make it happen, okay?
yeah,
And
no,
he
it's
goes,
fine.
well, what's your password? I don't know. Are you the administrator? I don't know. I'm not going anywhere.
No, we'll go. We'll talk about all that and we'll get it all set up. So, but Christiane, I know that you had a question too, and I definitely. So I know you're talking about the new Apple computer. I didn't even realize that they released a new one. I'm obviously behind a little bit myself. But typically, what I always say about Apple computers, and anybody please, correct me if you feel otherwise. I've always got the opinion of they have their place. If you don't need it for certain needs, I think it's an overpriced purchase, in my opinion. If you compare Apple products with, mainly if you go between, competitive, just when you compare them by spec, you go to Apple, HP, Dell, Lenovo, whatever, you're going to pay almost double in price for similar specs, and if not, sometimes lesser specs. I don't think it's necessary, but I mean, I find that there's a reason for them because the software you have available to you, the way they have their niche, right? Media, marketing, editing, photo imaging, video, the arts, right? Like they were like that back in the 80s when they were at their peak. And when they came back, they were still in the same situation. They made that niche. Yeah, they made their own ecosystem that everyone seems to love, but it's also that ecosystem that drives me nuts because everything's locked in. It's not easily transferable. It's not easily moved. I've never been a fan of that. I like the fact that I can just do what I want, however I want it. And that's why I find Android and, the PC platform, it's far better in that situation where you have that freedom, flexibility to move around. Apple ties you into everything. I've heard people, they have issues with their iTunes, with their own personal library being, for lack of better terms, held captive, I guess, where like they have to pay extra to access music that they've already purchased, downloaded, and maybe just uploaded to iTunes. But then Apple has some licensing thing that you have to go in and pay something extra to have access to it. I don't know the complete story of it, but I've heard bits and pieces and read, and it just blows my mind that they tie in so much with that. Again, if I'm inaccurate to that and somebody knows more about those that situation, please, feel free to correct me or let me know. But that's what I gathered at that point from that. And I don't find that right. I don't find, companies shouldn't be tying you in so much into there and then not being able to, I guess essentially let you go so freely, right? It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's why I've never been a huge fan to. I support them. We manage them, we monitor them, we support them. But I do definitely have to brush up more on them, because my hope is that as customers come on board, they'll have a wide range of different platforms, and Mac devices will be, especially iPhones and iPads too. Those are going to be, a lot of my customers, they might have a Windows 10 PC or a laptop, but then they still have an iPhone and an iPad. So I've got to definitely be up to speed on what's going on there and be more familiar with the Apple and iOS platforms. So definitely.
Well, that's why I was kind of because I do have an Apple, I have an iPhone and an iPad, but it's my laptop is not Apple, and I didn't know if I should start thinking about.
I would keep yourself some separation, because if you decide down the road to ever change up, it gives you that easy flexibility, right? Plus, I mean, at the end of the day, right? Will you be happy with the purchase at the end of the day too? Because right, if you compare the specs, you're going to pay, if you pay $2,000 for something that you could have bought an HP, Lenovo or something for even $1,500, $1,300, and still do that and more. That's where my argument becomes, right?
I agree. Yeah.
If you don't have the true need for it, and all you're doing it is for a status, well, people did that with Sony how many years ago too, and we all saw how that worked out too, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I personally prefer my Apple products to be somewhat juicy, usually green in color. I find those are the best ones. They seem to work the best.
I'll say too, like it's, kind of supporting what Thomas said, because, I work in IT as well. So we have a lot of, of our clients that use Apple PCs, and it's very, I agree. They're overpriced. I'm very supportive of Windows, mostly because Windows breaks more, so it's job security. But, but there definitely is a use case. I mean, if you're doing heavy, intensive, like music production, graphics and stuff, Macs definitely have their place. Supporting that from a Windows side too, you could easily go get like a Dell XPS or some kind of massive PC for equal, if not less, which is going to do the job just as good. And again, you're not tied in that ecosystem. So I definitely agree that, iPhones are great. They have their place. iPads are fantastic too. I mean, Apple was pretty much, they own the game in tablets right now. But from a PC perspective, I would definitely stay. I would definitely stay away unless you have a specific business need for it. And parts are way cheaper for non-Mac PCs.
So I'm going to contribute a little bit to this because I feel like things are going to be changing a little bit different, a little bit this time around, because Apple has gone in the direction of their own chipsets. That means that the comparison between an Intel chip and, say, an Apple chip, for instance, like the M1 chips, are going to be a lot tougher. I feel like the value proposition may change for some people once they start getting to grips with more machines with the M1 chip inside of it, and they start realizing, oh wow, this is different from like an Intel chip or from an Intel power computer or an AMD power computer or something like that, right? As for use cases, I also feel like not only will they lock you into the Apple platform, to the Apple ecosystem, but there's also, if you're a developer, you have no choice but to develop on a Mac. Xcode is exclusive to the Mac, which means iOS and and Apple Watch development and Mac app development, if you want to, are all locked to the Mac. They're all locked to Xcode. There are some exceptions like React Native where you can like spin up a debug instance and you can scan your phone and you can run it inside of a container, inside of an instance.
Right.
But for I think regular people, it's a tougher sell. it is a much tougher sell. Hell, I don't even use my MacBook for media production or for streaming or anything like that, because that's kind of a mess to deal with.
So you just use it for your app development then?
Oh yeah, it's a work computer. That's the way that I've always thought about it, and the durability I feel has been much. And I feel like one of the things that makes it worth it for me is probably the durability. Okay, with massive exceptions, the keyboard sucks, but we're not going to go down there. They've improved that for the next model, so my problem for getting that one apparently. God, I hate that keyboard.
I know I have issues too with integration. So Christiana, when I get instructors, because I'm PC based on everything. All my stuff is PowerPoint and Word, and they can't even plug in to existing infrastructure at their clients because Apple has a proprietary plug
For their projectors.
for projectors, right? So they have to buy an adapter to get to plug into the Apple end, and then have a PC and that they can plug into this, 80-inch monitor at the client.
And that says a lot too, when they actually, like, that's the thing that drives me nuts about Apple. They tie you in with the Thunderbolt connection, and you got to buy everything from there, from VGA, HDMI to even Ethernet. If you want to connect hardwire, they've removed that hardwire built in on the device itself for you to buy the adapter so you can plug in and do it.
I know. And then even though they're supposed to be able to read PowerPoint, they can't. Like that, whatever.
Unless you get, if natively with Mac Office or whatever it's called, you're right. But then you can buy the Office 360 or Microsoft Office for Mac, and then they do. But that's something you could actually standardize into your standard operating procedure. Is that you're requiring your instructors to have Office for Mac installed on their Mac devices in order to read Excel sheets, PowerPoints, and everything to make sure that there's complete compatibility.
Okay. Well, and that's usually what ends up happening, or they borrow their friends or spouses.
Yep. But yeah, you definitely, as far as them having the right adapters to connect, you would have to make sure that at least in your, again, standard operating procedures, let them know that, hey, if you're on site, make sure you have the proper adapters in order to make the connections. And then if they don't do it, that's on them. But to tell them right away that if they're going to be working with you and through you and for you, or however the arrangement is, there's got to be some sort of standard. So you can standardize it. They have to at least have a license of Mac Office for Mac, so that way they can access the files. Because if you're going to be providing them the information and they're going to turn around and say, well, I can't open it. Well, that's not my problem. These are the standard operating procedures of the business. If you want to be involved, you have to meet up to them. Like, you have to baseline yourself, or else,
And that's why I sent Jen to you, because she was so that compatibility, Christiane, is really.
Yeah, well, I was wondering about that because my concern was I've run into trouble every now and again because all of my documents, my wedding scripts, everything that I do is all in Word, right? So that's great. The odd time I'll hit a client who has a Mac. So when I've sent them my document, when they've edited it or whatever, and they're sending it back, I had trouble opening it because the format was an Apple format. And then they say, oh, well, yeah, you can get the version for Mac or whatever. I just never found that all very easy to.
So if you're sending something for somebody to review, are they editing it as well, Christiane?
Yes.
Okay, so they're editing, I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, send it as a PDF and see if they have
I know. They're editing as well. So, but then I had to figure out how to do it. I still can't remember how I got around it, but I did. But man, what a mess. Like, it just took forever, and it just used to bother me, but it's so seldom that it happens.
Right.
That, because I was wondering, should I have both?
Personally, have both. That's an expense you just don't need.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. I'm much more comfortable with my Word the way things are. I understand it. I know it. I don't want to make my life difficult.
No, and that's just it, right? Worst case, now is it, so these are customers that you're sending this to too, right? It's not other, okay, so that's the other thing. I would just let them know, worst case, that one of two things, because even Adobe Reader does have mild editing capabilities. So what you could do is ultimately send it to them in a PDF format and just let them know, be like, listen, you're gonna have to use Adobe because it's a PDF to, make the notes and edits. Because I know the free version does allow minor editing, not like you can go in and start redacting everything, but you can make notes and you can do things like that. So that might be something to do too. That way you save it as you have your Word document that you can edit a little bit more freely. You save it as a PDF to send off to the customer, which two things. One, it keeps most of the formatting and they just make notes for you to, and then that way you can go back and change the Word document. And it's an extra step to make that PDF, but it might make it easier for you if you when you're sending it off, because then making a quick note is a lot easier to do inside Adobe Reader than what it would be for them trying to either convert or edit or whatever and then send it back and giving you the format.
Okay, no, that's great advice. Thank you.
Distressing to hear that we're going back to the way things were 20 years ago. I mean, these two systems sort of came together and Microsoft got, the licensing with Word and all that, so you could transfer things back and forth. And now it sounds like they're going back into their own little world. And you know what? It's not good for business to be like that.
Christine, sorry for interrupting. There is a solution for what you're saying. There is a Google Drive. You can use a Google provides you ecosystem that you can actually share documents. And you can, if you don't have Word document, Excel document, anything like this, you can just use a Google. And your client, you can actually open up an account and your clients can share it with you. And then you don't need to use no Office, nothing, because it's all saved over there. I think you guys probably familiar with this as well. There is for Microsoft, there is a ecosystem like this. For Chrome account, there is like a different ways you can avoid it.
No, you're right there too, Victoria. That's true. You're absolutely right that, all the cloud services too, like even with OneDrive, there's minor editing capabilities and there's other ones too. Like everyone has their own, so that is another option too, which Christiane, we can talk about too, if that's, we can look at all those as well too, but I mean, there's so many
thank you, Victoria.
There's so many different ways, absolutely, that this, that can be looked at. And so it's not something that you're, you have to be left with no options. There's actually a number of them, right? So
yeah, it's why I'm a little bit puzzled because we technically never went back when it comes to the way in which platforms are stratified between Mac and PC. Arguably, the thing that has probably unified everything together is the web, and there is no other way that I can think of things being much better unified than through web apps and stuff like that. That's mostly the reason why the future of app development has moved almost completely to the web, because it's much easier to convince people, hey, I want to go and use a web browser than say I need to go download an app I'm probably going to use once, forget that it's there, and then delete when I need to save space. Like and that goes for Mac and PC as well, right? So most of my workflow and most of the things I've done are shared with people who will give me Google Docs for contracts and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I have a teaching platform that as soon as they say that the button's not activated for the to enroll, we go, are you on Safari by chance?
No, exactly. And that's just it, right? There are some compatibility issues on some of these things, but I mean, you just make sure that, you let people know. And again, all comes back to that standardized operating procedure, right? Let them know that you need to have Office or Chrome or Edge or whatever it is, right? So you just make sure that you let them know, because that way they're still representing you at the end of the day, right? So you don't want to have that. You want to make sure that they can present yourself as well as themselves in the best possible manner. So putting those standardizations is I personally would see nothing wrong with that. So if you're trying to sign somebody on and they have a problem with it, it's probably a chance there's a problem with them.
But that means I have to be like organized, right? Never mind.
Wrong call.
That's a Sherry Monday call, right?
Yeah, because I was going to say you're definitely preaching to the choir too. So. But yeah, any other questions that anybody has for anything technical, or wanting to understand more about how we provide our products and services or anything like that? Or
yeah, if nobody else has got a question, sorry, I'm just going to jump right in there like I do.
It's your show. You can do what you want.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Password keeper,
Yep.
whatever it's called. I'm desperate for that because right now, in the cloud, I keep a document that says secrets, and I spelt it wrong, not on purpose, but it looks good anyway. So that nobody really knows what it is, except it's
Right.
like 52 passwords.
No, we'll definitely, we'll talk, we'll go through, and because I mean,
Is that something that's available? Like,
yeah, it's part of it's. So what happens is it's part of the base of the services, right? So the page I sent you yesterday, it actually has it like on any tier, right? Password keeper is involved because that's part of what we want to have standardized. Where as yourselves as customers and users, you guys have access to your own. You can build your own password library, but at the same time, the way this one works is that we also can manage some of the corporate side of ones, right? So we can set some temporary passwords or, use the password generator to put in some strong ones. That way we at least have a baseline for yourself as well. Plus we can also keep an eye on what would be administrative passwords. So we can put them in on the back end and we can share them with you. So then you have access to them. We have access to them. Everybody, people who need to see, there's visibility between the passwords we set for you as a provider, and you can see them. But at the same time, you have access to create your own library of whatever it is you want to. So that's the nice thing about this password keeper. It has both an MSP backend and then your personal side. So you can do whatever it is you want to do. You can store all your customer ones and your personal ones, and then you and I can share administrative ones that need to be shared as well. So then, and at the end of the day, if you decide to walk away, you can still keep that password keeper. I can remove my access from those corporate ones. You have access to them only, and then you can, do what you need to do, change them however you see fit as well. So that's the nice thing about the password keeper. But it's definitely it's part of the baseline that we have for everybody who onboards. So that's always definitely something.
that's amazing. Good.
Yeah. And the nice thing is too is that the utility is the keeper, password generator, and two-form authenticator. So any services that have two-form authentication, our standard procedure is that we enforce any service that has two-form authentication. We ask our users to enforce it. So you can actually have two-form authentication built into this password keeper as well. It's all in one spot. So say for example, you pull up your Microsoft 365 account and it comes up. So it'll pre-fill your username and password. And when it gets the two-form authentication window, it'll do one of two things depending on how it's set up. It'll either populate the code that it's generated and then let you log in, or it'll just give it to you. You have to copy paste it and put it back in. But either way, it does it all. It automates the process for you. You don't have to make 10 different clicks, go to your password keeper, your generator, and this and that, or wait for your text message authentication.
Yeah.
It's all in one spot. It's everywhere. And then the nice thing is too, is that the password you can create too. They are extremely unique. It ranges from 6 to 200 characters. You can put in special characters, capitals, letters that make it unpronounceable. Do whatever you want with it. There's so many different possibilities. The password combinations are very strong. I've actually enjoyed using it. I had to work on a lot of kinks, but I mean, now that I've understand how to work it and how it works, I'm very happy with the product. So that's why I'm at a point where I can definitely roll it out to customers and users as they need it. So.
Oh, that's excellent. Good. Yeah, because I had to email myself. I had to change password for something. And I couldn't edit on my phone on my secret document. So I had to email myself to remind myself, Google, that I had changed my Google password. So I would come in, change it on my secret document because I can only edit it on my desktop.
No, and absolutely, that's a nice thing too.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that? So does that also work for example, I have Samantha who's going to be doing my bookkeeping. So I need to give her access to my QuickBooks file, but obviously I don't necessarily want her to actually know my password. And I know that there are server systems out there that will allow you to give access without telling them what that password is. Does it work? Does it do that as well?
Well, what would happen in that case is inside your QuickBooks, you would create a new user for her, and then she would have to create her own password and everything. Now, you wouldn't necessarily, your control and your access would be from within QuickBooks. You wouldn't need to worry about the password keeper for her at that point because she would be setting up her own unique username and password. You would just basically go in, manage users, send an invite, to her and set her permissions to read-only, administrator, bookkeeper, however you want to set the role to. And then what happens there is she'll get the email notifications, she'll set up her own account, and then she chooses how she wants to create or save her password. It wouldn't really fall on you at that point. It would be more her. Your control would come from inside QuickBooks. And at any point you no longer use her services for that, or you go to somebody else, you would go in, remove her as a user, and then, set it up to the next person kind of thing. So yeah, there's no
So
really.
that was a bad example.
Oh, it's fine. No, and you know what? You still have to know how.
Bad example. Because I have like Canva accounts and like various other accounts. So I want to be able to give someone access, but I don't want them having my actual password. So that's what I'm asking for. So I did know that about QuickBooks. So it was a bad example.
So what happens there is, because a lot of those, like Canva, for example, they don't allow multiple. I don't think they allow multiple users in situations like that. So what would happen is, exactly. But so say, for example, you don't want to, and you just still want her to use it. So what you would do is so she would need to have the same password generator software, and then you would have to share with her. And I have to double check, because I have to see how that works, because I think I would need to actually add her in as a license, and then have basically, I'd be the intermediary on that point and be sharing some of those passwords as well, because I'd have to see, because I know how to go from customer to user, but I'd have to double check and test that out to see how it goes from customer to contractor, or like in Samantha's case, virtual assistant, right? So I'd have to see how that works, because I think she would still need an account inside your business profile in order to be able to share those passwords in and around. So that's how that one would work. So
okay, thank you.
No problem.
You wouldn't actually see the password. It would just show up as a blank.
Yeah, exactly. So those types of passwords would be shared out in a way where exactly they would just autofill. So if she went to go click on it to see it, it would actually say unable to view, because I forget exactly the error code, that because even I get it. The way I've set up some of my permissions, when I go to view my password on my phone, I can't actually see it myself either, just because of the way the permissions are set. I don't have access because it's a corporate shared. So the idea is that I'm coming in there and I just need to enter it. I don't need to look at it. If it was a personal one of mine, different story. I should be able to see it, no problem. But once it's a corporate shared, and it's shared out to multiple people, that's when it becomes just something that it's populated. It's not visible. It's only visible. It's visible on the desktop, but not on a mobile device or anything. And it's only visible to the administrator. So, I mean, in this case, Sherry, you'd be the administrator to your profile. You can see the passwords in those cases. Where if for Samantha, for example, she would be a standard user, so she would have access to use those passwords in the pre-filled website, but she wouldn't be able to see them. She would come up saying unable to see, or again, I can't remember the error word for word, but it's basically there is a prohibiting aspect to it. So,
well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I can add something, you bring a very interesting point because of sharing password. In the industry right now, it's not recommended to share a password at all, because what happens, I'm not sure with the books that I'm not familiar with the system, but usually how it's working, usually you have to define a role. And if you're administrator, you have one role, you can oversee what other people doing. And I'm pretty sure there is a different type of roles in every single system right now. And when you sharing your password, you're sharing all of your authorization.
So you're sharing all the information. I agree. I understand where you're coming from. So
yes, you're sharing all of your permissions. So for example, if I was an administrator, I can change, I can modify, I can add, I can remove very important documents. And if I share it with you, you can do it as well when you're leaving and you are upset with me. And this happens a lot with the companies, and you don't want to encourage other person to do a damage to your business. So in this case, it is very important to distinguish roles and to create a different password. Then you can actually monitor what the other person is doing. It's just my advice.
No, and I agree with you. And I agree. That's why when we mentioned the QuickBooks example, that's where I said where Sherry would be best in that case to create an individual user inside QuickBooks, set the permissions, and have her create it. And I agree. But in the case of Canva is just pictures, right? And I understand that there's still a chance, but this is more for the case of where, Sherry, if I'm not mistaken, you'd be wanting Samantha to just basically get a picture, edit it, and put it out for a social media post, if I'm not mistaken, correct? So you're right, Victoria. It's not the 100% I wouldn't say it's the end all answer. I would rather prefer there's another user, but in some cases where you're working with, say, a social media person or a virtual assistant, in some of those lesser for lack of better terms, low priority situations like, a Shutterstock or a Canva, where it's just a matter of sharing or grabbing pictures and editing them for the sake of a social media post. My comfort level in doing something like that isn't exactly a 10 out of 10, but it's not also a 1 out of 10. I understand where it would be coming from. I would rather, I would recommend better situations, but I mean, for the sake of the conversation and the example that we're talking about here, that's how it would be done. I mean,
it's hard too, because some of them require you to have another license. Like, I don't know.
That's the other thing too. Every service is different. I'm not familiar with every service individually.
Constant Contact doesn't have that, right? And she updates my email lists and stuff like that. So,
well, I'm familiar with a service that actually has the opposite, where they don't even allow multiple logins. It's one user and that's it. And the unfortunate part is it's actually a payroll service. So, and I have it set up, I know, and that's, Sherry, you imagine my look when I found that out too. So, it's for the Greek community, and I set it up. And now what happens is that anybody who's doing, like, the few people part of the treasury department, like the treasurer, the assistant treasurer, they now have to share that contact with the bookkeeper, and it's one user logging in. I can't audit, I can't track. The unfortunate part is we're using Sage, and that's the only Sage Cloud. So it's similar to your QuickBooks Online, and that's the only payroll service that it ties in with. I haven't found any other payroll service that ties into this platform. So it's like, this is a disaster just waiting to happen. The only thing I can hope for is that there's enough technical people around that actually do get into this, so I can hope that they at least, they help me have those extra set of eyes. But there's also a couple of people that aren't very technical going in there, and I feel like it's a disaster, symphony of destruction. It's not going to end well. But I'm also limited. I have to try and find either another solution, or that's kind of the problem I'm at right now. So sometimes you're limited by the resources you have available too. So it's not, again, I don't feel comfortable doing it, but sometimes it's the greater, again, lack of better terms, it's the greater good, right?
Maybe if you
Everyone has
can
to
find out if we can have these extra sign-ins, that would be an option for you.
Yep. And then sometimes too, like, even I would imagine, again, some of the standard procedures for on Samantha's side might be that she would require, individual user accounts for any and majority, if not all services. Like, again, your QuickBooks, have her set up as a bookkeeper role where she doesn't see all administrative tasks, but she can pretty much do anything. Even with Canva and Shutterstock, I don't know. I'd have to see how that works. There's got to be an increased price to have multiple user logins on one company or whatnot, right? So, they might also allow for something. I know some of them sometimes have, there's some, I can't think of one right now, but they don't charge extra for the users because the price is already assumed that there's an X amount of assumption that there's going to be multiple users, right?
Wave let you do that.
Yep, exactly right. There's a few, right? So, for example, I know that even some of my own products and services as well, they don't charge per user. They allow you at least 1 or 2 users because you've paid a price and you have an X amount of licenses to you. Actually, best example I can think of right now, because I'm trying to think of an example right off the top of my head. The antivirus we sell is like, you're allowed 1 to 3 devices on it. So for example, you have a laptop, desktop, and say a MacBook. You can cover all 3 of those devices on 1 license. So that's a convenience becomes at that point, right? So, and then, again, that was the only one that came to mind real quick. I was trying to think of something else, but that was, something of a similar example, right? And again, QuickBooks is another one where they have so many, unlimited users at that point. You can have so many different users, but the only restriction is, depending on tier, accountants and bookkeepers are only allowed so many, but actual users within the system, you can have an unlimited amount of users. You can have, contractors and vendors to, do timing for timesheets. You can have a bookkeeper, 1 accountant, but there's so many different, you just have to make sure you have the right tier and you double check the licensing that come with it. Right. So, and then from there.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you, Thomas. Guys, if you have more questions, don't forget you can email the tech guy.
Ask me anytime. I'm pretty available for the most part. So if anybody has any other questions about anything, need to look into onboard our services or just have questions in general, I'm more than happy to answer. So
There you go. Thank you, Thomas. It was a wonderful, informative morning. And it's
Thank you
gonna
for
be
having me, as
that
always.
technology words, but most of them I got. So I hope other people did too.
Yeah,
Um,
and thanks for that article last night. That was
Ransomware one?
yeah, really shocking.
I know. Like I said, I was more surprised that there's 8% that actually do it. Like, I mean, really, like that was more my shock than anything. I was like, wow, there's actually honest people still in the world of douchebags.
I actually flipped it. I thought that they were like 92% honest, that you paid them the money, they unlocked your stuff. That's the way I looked at it.
yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, I did steal it, but you have to understand, I stole it back. That kind of like
Yeah.
circular logic kind of thing.
Well, I mean, and that's just it, right? And at the end of the day, I think about it this way too, right? Where here's the thought process that comes to it is, say, for example, right now, it sounds like the pipeline company had was able to restore their services without paying the ransom. Congratulations, they had something in place.
Yes.
Mhm.
DC police that was hit most recently, they're being threatened that it doesn't sound like they haven't paid yet, but there's a chance that they're going to have the team that actually took the data is threatening to release it because they haven't paid up yet. Imagine what happens if a police department has you would find out confidential informants, you would find out any wrongful arrests, potential body cam misconducts, because body cam information is stored at the station, I imagine. So anything that turns on and off goes back into the storage servers there. They have access to it. So you could release any wrongdoings that are on body cam, wrongful arrests, misconduct, abuse of power, anything that's caught up, any reports that have been redacted, they'd all come out. Like that's a very slippery slope of
Or
what happens.
even
Oh,
worse
Lord.
is if they use it the other way and it's somebody in their organization that's been arrested and we've just got all your evidence and you no longer have your evidence to prosecute the
Yep.
case.
Wow.
Exactly. No, I mean
Oh,
it could very well be something.
Love that. Wow.
Considering it's DC police, I think we all have an idea on what the conspiracy theory might be going on right now and what they're going after. January 6th.
January 6th? No.
if this
Hopefully.
information actually does come out, God, I would love to see what's in
Me
it.
too. I would definitely. You forget, but and here's the thing too. Over the last little bit, the U.S. government in general has been beat up. I mean, they said Russia's doing this, but it said, and then yesterday Biden signed an executive order for cyber attack. It's like, I didn't read much to understand what it does, but at the end of the day, congratulations. You wrote on a pen and paper that you have to force this. Private companies are not going to care what you think. If they don't consider IT a necessity and cybersecurity a necessity, they're still not going to do it. Doesn't matter what you said. So unless they have ties to the government, maybe you can, again, put a standard level of it, right? I mean, utility companies do have some answering to the government, even though they might be private. So again, they might be forced to have some level of some standard level baseline, which again, I don't know what was enacted in this executive order. So I don't know how much it's, how good it's going to be towards preventing these things, right?
Wow.
I mean, if they're going to tell you, oh, you have to have backups, but don't worry about antivirus. Okay, great. You can still get hit, but it just takes you less time to get back up online. Congratulations. I don't know what's
But that pipeline took
trade-off?
5 days, did it not?
at least.
Because it wasn't last Friday that they shut it down?
Yeah. And then the thing is that they brought in, who did they bring in? Red Eye, I think it was. And it's like, this is the pot calling the kettle black because they recently got hit. They're a security company, like a managed security company, and they recently got hit by ransomware cyber attack. It's like, maybe the wrong ones to bring in.
I was under the impression that the pipeline is not back up online yet.
Well, they brought it up yesterday.
Oh, I thought it was
Last
bring
night,
it up yesterday?
they brought up enough systems online to actually open up the pipeline last
Okay.
night at some point. For the first time in months, I was flipping through stuff at CNN when they were talking about that because I was like, yeah, let's see what's going on. And they talked about actually saying that they had just brought up enough systems to bring up that line again. So they
Yeah,
had no
because
clue.
there
Some
was
of the-
somewhere in the States where because of the shortage of gas, they were selling gas for $7 a
Well,
US gallon.
people are
They were
buying
running
like they were
out.
buying toilet paper a year ago. Of course, they're going to have a shortage
Yeah.
problem. I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe not mention that there's going to be a slight hiccup in gas in the gas supply. How about that? Now you're going to make the problem even worse.
well, that's just it, right? I mean, media exemplifies the situation, right? They overblew it because it's not like it was going to end up happening. If it went on for a couple of weeks, maybe a different story. But there's supply everywhere to at least hold for a couple of days. Like it's not. But
If
The
it
media
had been
needs
beer
something
or
that
bacon,
What's that, Cher?
I said if it had been beer or bacon, this would have never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in a conference yesterday. It was very interesting about the hacking, and they were saying, and some guy demonstrated, like, for example, if you have a garage, okay, you have a garage at home, and you press a button and it's open up. How long do you think it's to hack it? It's 4 seconds to walk into any garage by using a very simple toy of child tool that costs $4. And just using a couple
Good
of
afternoon.
line of code,
Actually,
you
good
can
morning.
open up any garage.
Feels like an afternoon.
Yeah, because it picks up the signal in the code and then
Yeah,
exactly.
it's
You're right.
pickups. Yeah, and he actually showed how to do that, and he actually showed that he can open up any car with the same toy.
Yeah, exactly. Because they were
Oh.
well, it was a few months back, right? Toronto was showing about how people were getting their key signals, their key fobs were being duplicated because somebody was standing right next to the door, the house when somebody hit the unlock button, and then they transmitted it to somebody else. So it would allow the signal to travel into a duplicate key. So then later on that night, they would go in and just, they had the dummy key to take the thing and go. It's a bit of a process. It's a 2-man team to do it, but yeah, like.
Wow.
There's
It's
actually
Still
2 ways
possible.
to
Exactly.
hack that. I've heard. One is the parking lot method where they wait for you to actually hit your
Yep.
thing, and there's that one. But apparently, those keys, even when they're laying on a drawer, are still emitting a signal.
Exactly.
When you
Yep,
push,
the low
when you
signal.
push the button, it just closes the circuit, sort of kind of thing. So they're actually driving through neighborhoods and stopping, and they just wait till they get signals.
Yep.
And that's one reason they say is do not keep your car keys near the front door. Keep them somewhere else in your house.
At least
further away from
it
the street.
maximizes that the distance from where somebody can pick up that range. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, because this is my life,
Exactly.
right? Fob to get in the car, and my condo building has a fob not only for the garage door,
Access control.
but to get into the building itself, right? Like it's a button for the garage door opener, and then a swipe for the doors to the house.
Exactly.
And then there's the other way of getting in the garage door is you get into the vehicle. That can involve a hammer if need be. And all you got to do is push the button, because a lot of vehicles have the garage
built-in.
door link built in. And you push the button and it opens up.
Yeah, ours doesn't. Yeah.
Because everyone wants to link everything for convenience, right? Like,
Listen, I'm going to go old school on you for a second, because at one time, my car, I actually went into a parking lot. This was a very long time ago, just to be clear. Went into a parking lot and unlocked my car back in the olden days when, there wasn't buttons that unlocked them. Unlocked my car, got into my car, put the key in the ignition, and went, this isn't my car. It actually unlocked the car because they only had so many different types of ways they could change keys.
Yep.
And so mine was just close enough that I could actually unlock the car, but for whatever reason wouldn't actually start their car. So I very sheepishly got back out of the car, locked the door, and went and got in my car. So
Remember the time GM had 2 keys, one for the door, one for the ignition? So
Yeah.
and that's how they
I
did it,
remember
right? Because I heard that they really only had 7 different key combinations.
exactly.
So as long as you could match those 7, so they weren't always the same, right? Obviously, if you get enough cars, if you had 100 cars in the parking lot, 13 of them you could probably potentially go into
Yeah.
and start and drive.
Watch you somehow like go inside of somebody else's car in the driver's seat with just using the trunk key somehow. Like, it probably could have happened, right? But I just love the idea of like accidentally carjacking someone. Like you're on the highway and you're like, this is my car. This isn't my car.
Yeah.
Wow.
Guys, it's been a wonderful morning. And again, thank you, Thomas, and thank you for the wonderful conversation and information. It was a great morning. We will see you Monday morning, bright and early at 9:30, Coffee with Ivan.
Everybody take care.
Bye, everybody. Have a
Bye,
lovely
everybody.
weekend.
Thank
It's
you.
summer. Enjoy it.
I know. Isn't that wonderful?